Welcome again to the third day of the Transforming the Teaching and Learning Environment virtual conference. I'm Bob Hale. I'm your moderator. Don't forget about our sponsor, Wall Street Journal. Tomorrow, noon central, they've got another workshop. Honestly, it's been pretty interesting. I thought some of the things they have available. So I know I'd appreciate it if you spend a few minutes, to check it out. Um, our session today is introducing the course success self-review, self-directed needs analysis to target resources and improve instruction. Oh, what a radical idea we have. We have with us Dan Pell, who is a teaching and learning consultant. And he supports the process of designing and implementing courses and curricula, building the capacity of academic programs to deliver high quality and inclusive learning experiences. Karen Skibba, is that correct, Karen?
That's correct.
Okay. Karen specializes in online and blended faculty development and developing quality online and blended courses. Karen has also authored book chapters on educational technologies and online and blended teaching and faculty development. So we're in good hands today. Let me turn it over to Dan and Karen.
Well, thank you, Bob. You did a great job of introducing us. So the only thing I can add to that is that both Dan and I are at a newly formed, I guess it isn't that new now, maybe a year and a half, Center for Teaching Learning at Medicine at UW-Madison, and we didn't have that before. So I have over 20 years experience in faculty development, so I'm honored to be here today. Dan, anything you want to add?
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm Dan Pell. I use he, him pronouns, and I have worked with Karen since we were joined together during the pandemic and worked together, particularly on this project for over 2 years. And prior to that, I've worked in academic transformation for over 15 years, much of it here at UW-Madison. I'm a language instructor by training, and I'm just delighted to be here with you and to share this with you. Karen, is this yours?
Well, you took it over because you said Karen and I are here, but I can take it to say Dan and I are here to share the course success self-review. The self-review is designed to help instructors. I don't want to read all of these, but for the people that may have difficulty reading, I read them a bit, learn about the purpose and audience of the course success self-review. The course, you'll see it as CSSR. So if you see that acronym, not that we don't have enough acronyms in the world, but if you see that, that's what it is. We're talking about the course success self-review. We'll introduce you to the self-review using the Qualtrics survey that we used and the website. And we'll also share with you the framework of success factors or recommendations and how to apply it that we use to develop the self-review. And then Dan will talk about, he'll dig into the data just a little bit to show what kind of things that you can learn from a tool like this on instructor engagement and priorities. And then together, I hope we can consider how we might be able to use this in your own courses or teaching as well, because this is a open source resource that we have copyright on, that you can utilize this as well. So we can talk about some of those
We have
applications.
Creative Commons.
Creative Commons.
Yeah, we've opened it up to people to use and adapt. Yeah, so I just add to that, the self-review, as you'll see, was created in 2020 during the period of emergency remote instruction to help instructors who were unable or did not want to talk with a consultant or to attend faculty development. And it was partly based on the UW-Madison survey that found that the amount of self-access resources that were available was overwhelming for instructors. So we developed the CSSR as a framework and a tool to help instructors locate resources to meet their specific needs. Now, as an overview of the session, as an overview of the session today. We're going to spend about 10 minutes giving you a sense of what the CSSR is, that overview, the purpose and the audience, the framework of recommendations, and then how it's constructed as a survey and a website. We'll follow that by a chance for you to engage with us and with one another to talk about that content, the framework, the survey, and the website. And then we're going to go into, as Karen said, the applications and some implications of it and what we're learning from the data that's gathered in the background. We'll spend about 5 minutes on that, and then we'll come back and open again for more conversation. Particularly like to share new directions that we may be going in with it and to hear about what it inspires you to think about and how you feel that you might use this and apply this in your own context and setting. So we really hope that there'll be a chance for all of us. It doesn't look like it's a huge crowd, so it should be a chance for all of us to speak together and explore. Now, before we launch into that, we've created a session guide today, which has a lot of information about the course success self-review and links, and also has a place for us to pull ideas as we're talking. You'll be able to post a question into there, as well as the chat, and just it's a collaborative space for us. So if you could take a minute to open this up, the link is on the screen right now. And Karen, did you post that into? Great. It's also in the chat if you want to open that up. I'm going to get that open myself while we're talking. Whoops. Okay. All right, and this link will be posted several more times during the presentation. So I'm going to move us ahead, but if you need that link, it will be there on screen. It's right at the lower right corner now. Okay. So the Course Success Self-Review was created to address a gap in the support available to instructors who might not be ready or have the time to engage with other forms of instructional support. Both of us have done, one-on-one consulting and working with programs and departments, but there are always people that don't have time to pick up that kind of engagement, or they might just not be ready to expose their vulnerabilities and to really reflect on things with someone that they don't know. So the Course Success Self-Review was built to address that gap. And we have really 3 primary audiences in mind. The first is faculty, instructional staff, graduate teaching assistants. And that was focused on helping them to design and deliver, to strengthen the design and the delivery of their courses, regardless of modality, online, face-to-face, or hybrid, and then to connect them with targeted feedback and resources. The secondary audience is instructional support professionals, so colleagues of ours. And for us, it brings information together within a clear framework. And if an instructor uses it and shares the results, it can also provide a needs analysis, identifying areas to focus on. And Karen will talk about that more later. And then an additional audience is the professional development planning. So as you'll see, as we go further in, that the Course Success Self-Review gathers anonymous data about areas of concern that are identified in aggregate by instructors. And this can give us some insight into their needs and priorities, and that can inform planning for other resources, professional development, and training. Before I hand over to Karen, to just share 2 achievements that we've had with the Course Success Self-Review. The first was to be featured as an exemplar project in the 2022 Teaching and Learning Horizon report from EDUCAUSE, and that was in the category of professional development for hybrid or remote teaching. And then the second achievement was to be selected as a finalist for the Pod Innovation Award. And that gave us an opportunity to present the tool at the Pod Network conference in Seattle, and also at the EDUCAUSE ELI conference in San Diego. And thanks to those two recognitions, we've also been able to leverage that to get more publicity here at UW-Madison, which has been a hard nut to crack. The Course Success Self-Review is based on a framework which we developed along with other colleagues at UW-Madison, and this draws on a number of recognized standards, notably Quality Matters and others. You can see that we identified 6 high-impact categories: course planning, supporting students, instructor-student interaction, student-to-student interaction, materials and media, and assessment and feedback. We call these categories success factors, and that idea of success factors is using positive language rather than words like standards or criteria, which might seem intimidating to instructors. So within these 6 success factors, we identified 31 specific and actionable recommendations. And these are aimed at helping to strengthen instruction and student learning in all course modalities. Karen, you're muted.
Okay, as you can see on this slide, this is at the top right, this is how they would actually enter the self-review. They would go to this website here on the front page of the website, and it gives them step-by-step directions on how to use it. So it is built, the self-review itself is built in Qualtrics, and it guides instructors through an anonymous self-directed needs analysis by asking if they feel like some of the success factors were effective in their course. And then they select the specific success factor in the self-review that they would like to strengthen. Instructors are then instructed to read the provided recommendation because it's kind of guides them through the recommendations that should be done when they do need to achieve that standard. And they rate themselves on how effectively they feel they have achieved each of those recommendations. There's between 4 to 6 recommendations for each success factor. We didn't want to have too many to overwhelm them. Each success factor explains what it is, why it is important, where it is typically in the course in case they don't know. So they get a number of quick tips along the way as they go through the survey. Next slide. So here, this is an example of a report. So when rating the recommendations, if the instructors choose somewhat or not effective, they will receive direct links from that survey that they just took, either in a PDF report, or if they prefer that it gets emailed to them, they don't have to put in their email because we're trying to keep this anonymous. So if they don't want to do that, they don't have to provide their email. They would just download a PDF report. And that links them to the website, which provides them with detailed information on how they could achieve that recommendation. It gives them a lot of great advice. Okay, so this is the actual website. As you can see here, it shows the different drop downs across. It shows the different recommendations. It shows the success factors, and the drop down shows the recommendations. So if the instructors want to review the resources on their own, it provides directly links them to the website shown here. And the website, as I mentioned, is organized by the success factors and recommendations that they previewed in the Qualtrics survey, so they can easily find those resources. Or they can retake the survey to be directed. A lot of them that we find go directly now to this website after they've taken the review, since it is organized fairly well, so they can find the type of things that they want. Okay. And then each of the pages of the Core Success website has the same format. We felt that was really important. At the top is the text of the recommendation, followed by a synopsis from the self-review, because in case they didn't take the self-review, we want them to see that synopsis. And even if they did, it's a good reminder of what was on there. So on the right, you'll see the background information on what is this, why is it important, where is this? These are the same things that are in the survey. Below that, the main text of the page is how to put it in practice. And that's all the information on the extensive advice and supporting resources that they might need. And that's what we continually update and make sure that we have the latest information and links to provide that. Okay, and then finally, we got now we want to give you an opportunity to talk about what you've seen so far. I know we've only seen a little bit of it. We did provide the link earlier. We'd like to give you an opportunity to talk about what you've seen. So we put, we got to put the question. Let me paste the question in chat here that we would like your thoughts on and have your key takeaways. So let me paste that right now. So if you can go to that document, we would like to have you share what advantages do you see in the Core Success Self-Review compared to other instructor resource websites you have used. So we would like to give you a few minutes to do that. Dan, if you could go to that link and share that.
Sure. Put the participant guide up on the screen. Sure, I can do that. I think. Far so good.
Here we go. I got
You
people
seeing it?
entering. Yep, we see people
Okay, great.
entering some things. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. And if anybody wants to just, I don't know, Bob, how you want, if you want to raise hands or just have people on mute. There are, I'd love to hear from you.
Well, people will jump in either verbally or
Mhm.
by text. Most of these
Yeah.
folks won't have any hesitation.
And no rush, take your time to gather your thoughts. And if you have any questions, you want to post into that as well. I'm happy to.
Right, we got some good ideas already listed on there about personalized tips. Yes, that the second one is something that Dan mentioned was a real focus for us because there's a lot of instructors who were reluctant to come to faculty development or just didn't have the time. So this is another way to reach them. And of course, you can imagine, we suggest that they reach out to CTLM if they have further questions, because we always would like that, but we do find a lot of instructors who aren't able to attend. So that is a big one. Yep, and the data gathering, which Dan will talk about. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's presented as something that's a positive. We're here, we want to hear about your success. We want to, and tell us ways that we can make things better. And it's not, we're gonna tear apart how poorly you did or anything.
Mhm.
Right, you make a
Yeah.
good point there because we made sure we wrote it, and that's why we called them recommendations. And the success factors rather than standards. So we wanted to use language that was friendly to faculty and not scare them away. So
And we do
everything is
find
written that way.
you'll see as when we show you kind of behind the scenes in a minute that that instructors are engaging with self-reflection through this, and that's what we really, underlying this is that it's guided self-reflection, that they are being walked through, looking at their own teaching, their own courses, no judgment in relation to some very specific themes. And there are a lot of opportunities to do that out there, as Quality Matters has both the public facing, there was a remote instruction toolkit, and then the other that you need to log in to access, but that doesn't point you at how to fix it. If you're going through and self-assessing, you don't necessarily, it's on the instructor to then say, okay, I've got this problem, I realize it, but I need to go out and do something about it. Whereas we really tried to put the solutions right in front of them at the moment when they're also reflecting on what their strengths and areas to improve are.
Great. So a lot of great ideas. Anybody want to say anything? I was wondering about the growth mindset. That was an interesting comment. Whoever typed that, do you want to? You don't have to, but do you want to explain that one a little bit?
Oh, hi, that was me. And I thought of that term we usually think of building that in students, but if we can build that in faculty at every point of their career, because education keeps changing and the context that we are teaching in, and we get different students every year. Yeah, and so I liked that the program is focused on that reflection, to be able to grow their skills and reminding them that they can still grow their skills wherever they are, at the beginning, middle, or towards the end of their teaching experience.
Yeah. Great.
Thanks,
I
Sarah.
love that.
Yeah. And I just, while we're paused for this question, has anyone seen anything similar out there, or do you have anything similar that does that idea of like self-reflection followed by here's how you can do something about it?
Yeah, at the University of Mississippi, it's not in the pre-development side. It's more tied to our course review that we call course enrichment, that after they receive the rubric with suggested revisions, we do have a post-review self-reflection. And then we ask them to use that prior to meeting with the instructional design team and developing their revision plan and how they'll approach it.
Great. Do you have a link you could share that provides information on that? That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, I will dig out the link to that file, for sure. And
I'm
I'll put it
sure.
in the chat.
Okay, or put
Thanks,
it in the
Mary.
Google Doc, then we'll
Yeah,
have
if you drop
a
it into
common,
this session guide, that would be great.
Yeah,
Thanks,
for
Mary.
sure.
Excellent.
and anyone else who has similar type things, if you could put it in here, that'd be great. So we like to share information. Good. Otherwise, we'll go back to the slides, Dan.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Thank you for
And
sharing, everybody.
I will just give me a second to get these slides back on screen here. Whoops, wrong screen. I'm sharing the screen that doesn't have slides right now. This back up there.
Yeah, because the next thing that we're going to be showing is some applications of how we use the Course Success Self-Review to kind of spark some ideas, and hopefully we'll get some more ideas from you. After we do these sessions, we always get great ideas. In fact, we're going to be implementing one of them that we'll talk about later. But so here's some example applications. So first, our Center of Teaching, Learning, and Mentoring team developed a unique way to utilize the resources. We developed a 1.5-hour interactive workshops via Zoom called the Course Success Series. That's where experts, consultants introduced best practices from the Course Success website to help them utilize these, because even though we provide all that information in there, it's always helpful to discuss it and give faculty a chance to discuss these different ideas so they could utilize the strategies to make progress on their course design and teaching challenges. And if instructors weren't sure which workshop to attend, the website, our professional development website, also suggested to complete the Course Success Self-Review in advance to identify areas that they may want to focus on, and then they could target relevant workshops. These workshops encourage more instructors to explore and utilize the Course Success Self-Review. The other one shown on here, there's a course called, I love the name, the Canvas Dream course. And this was a course for graduate student instructors. And one of the activities in the training was to take the self-review first and to identify areas that the course participants would like to improve their dream course. And then it would link to specific pages from the Course Success Self-Review that were integrated throughout the workshop. So those are two ideas. Dan will share another one.
Yeah, and I'd just add to what Karen said about that I facilitated a couple of these sessions, and it was really handy to go into the Course Success Self-Review and look at the text that was already there and the resources that had already been gathered, because there were so many good resources already compiled on the theme. So it was a good starting point just for the planning of how we're going to build out the session too. So another application that we thought we'd bring today was just the timing. Our Center for Teaching and Learning has not been around for very long, so we're kind of continually establishing how we communicate with our campus and trying to establish our presence. And we were really happy that our communication specialist picked this as a front and center at the beginning of the semester. So I think it was the 2 weeks running up to the semester, they wanted to put a set of resources out for instructors at that opportune moment to say, here's, we know you're getting ready now, and here's what you can do to feel better prepared. And so that was this little tile here was on the front of the center's website for those 2 weeks running up to the start of the semester. All right, and now we're going to shift over to kind of behind the scenes. There are some other applications, if you're interested, that we could talk about that we're a little more focused on UW-Madison specifically. But if you wanted to ask questions about that, feel free to drop them into the session guide, because we'll have more time for open discussion after. But right now I wanted to share a little bit about the data that's being collected by the self-review in Qualtrics and also by the Course Success website through Google Analytics. So we get a lot of data from it, which has really been interesting because it's been, the longer it's been out there, it's 2 years old now, the longer it's been out there, the more we can really draw from this. So the first question that I have looked at on this slide is who's using it. And you can see on the left side of this page, there's a lot of information, so I'll try to direct you where to look. On the left side, we've had 184 people go through the Qualtrics survey, and that's out of 449 people who have accessed it. Now, I mean, they've gone through and rated themselves for at least one of the recommendations. That 449 includes a small number of, obviously there's some like spams and bots that go and look at this, but pretty small number. And then a lot of people that go through and are stepping through just to get a sense of the tool. So out of that 184, there are 50 people identified as designers or technologists, so 27%, faculty, 26%, instructional staff, 22%, and then you can read the rest down. So if you add up the faculty, instructional staff, and the teaching assistants, we get to a little more than half of the people that are going and using the survey in a substantive way are in an instructor role. Below that, in the small table, you see the number of recommendations reviewed. The average is 16.7, and the average amount of time in the survey is about 17 minutes. And that fits neatly within what we were hoping was that if people took the entire self-review survey, that it would take less than 60 minutes to do. As I think Karen mentioned, the first thing you do when you go into it after identifying yourself in your role is to choose which of those 6 success factors you want to review. And then you're only shown the recommendations for the ones you choose. And we encourage people to only do about half of them because that allows you to really narrow your focus. But some people do go through the whole thing too and look at all 31 recommendations. Then further down at the bottom of the page in the red, this is the information coming to us from Google Analytics, so the website usage. And we have over 8,000 total page views on the site. Of that, there's 4,000 sessions, 2,200 new users, and 587 people as returning users. So this is, of course, is approximate because Google Analytics has to, identify you in the way that it does. But it's, this has been steadily growing. And about 20% of the visitors come to the website from the survey. And then the majority of people now are, going directly to the website, which is also something we encourage. Then above this in the 2 big tables, you can see that over time I've been able to do an average of, periodically go through and look at what are the top recommendations. So health promoting practices has been consistently close to the top. And then when I average all those rankings together, I get that it is the most viewed recommendation, or the one that people, sorry, I should say the one on which people most frequently receive feedback. Because you remember that you review your course by saying, very effective in this, in which case you don't receive the feedback, or I'm somewhat or not effective, in which case you do receive feedback. So 85% of people who have reviewed that recommendation, health promoting practices, have received feedback on that recommendation. And that has been pretty consistent every time I've looked at that data. And then below that, unit level objectives, flexibility accommodations, group work, and so on. So this has been interesting because we can kind of get a sense of what instructors are prioritizing, or survey takers are prioritizing when they look at this. And now that we have, a larger number, I can even subdivide it out into, are they in an instructor role? Are they at UW-Madison or not at UW-Madison? There's several ways I could look at this. I'm just presenting you the overall. What is also interesting here is that if you look way over to the right and the lower, the lower ranked recommendations, academic integrity, organization navigation, selecting and explaining technology, it's still almost 50% of people, 45% of people who look at that recommendation and rate themselves are receiving feedback. So, even the lowest ranking ones in this are still almost half of the people are still saying I'm only somewhat or not effective in this. So yeah, it's interesting to look at this data periodically, and we're happy to show it again and take questions. I've also pasted this slide into your session guide so you can look at it in more detail, and the link to all of our slides are in the session guide too. So that brings us to the second discussion question. There is space for you to post some thoughts, and we'll give you a few minutes and before we talk for you to gather your thoughts. You're welcome to answer this question that's on the screen right now. It's also in your session guide, or if you have more general questions or questions related to anything you saw, or just something you want to share with the group that you think that the group or we might be interested in, post those, grab a bullet point in the session guide and type those in, and we'll spend the rest of the session really talking with you. So thanks.
Great. Dan, can you show the guide once more so we can see the responses?
Are you seeing it now?
Yep.
Okay, I'll make that bigger.
Should we share, Dan, the idea we got from one of these sessions that we are looking into implementing while they're typing it in?
We can, yeah, or if we want to give you just all,
Yeah,
maybe
and
give you
then we
another
can
30
share that.
seconds to.
Yeah, to type in your ideas, and we'll see if that one pops up again. It comes up a lot. So we got great ideas from doing these sessions. Great, we're getting some that like certain sections of the core success self-review, like the materials and media and the student-to-student faculty connections. Some like the
Yeah,
idea of
I
the workshops. Mhm.
hope you will open the tool up. You probably have, but if you haven't yet, open it up and poke around. See what's there.
Yeah, and if you have other ideas that on how we could use the tool, we'd love to hear it. And I saw somebody use the course. We are actually a Quality Matters institution as well, but for some reason, we use it a lot more for instructional design, but it hasn't seemed to catch on center-wide yet here.
There's
Yeah.
cost issues and also the
Yeah.
question of how relevant it is to face-to-face versus online.
Yeah, our tool is good for all modalities. If there's something specific for online, we pull that out. But the recommendations are good for any type of modality.
But that's our aim.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, one question that has come up to us before is, have you ever Oh, I see a comment in the
Oh.
chat. New standards will address all modalities as well.
Oh, the new quality matter standards?
So one suggestion we've had from people in a previous session was have we shared this with students and had students do the review for instructors, and that's something that we are definitely looking at. We talked about it. I mean, just in the last few weeks of taking the existing quality or Qualtrics survey and then stripping out the language that's specific about how to do this, which is not very much of the survey, most of it's on the website, and then reframing that as an opportunity for students to look at a course they're taking and use that as a survey to gather, student views, and tie that, if possible, to an instructor doing a self-review so that the instructor can say, okay, this is where I feel my strengths are, this is where I feel I can improve, and seeing what the students would say, and then using that hopefully through a guided and more supported approach, although obviously the self-review already has how to put this into practice. So an instructor who bravely gets student feedback could just take that and go straight into working on it themselves. But we've been looking at, say, if this could be the basis of an instructor, like a learning community for instructors, to do this guided self-reflection plus guided student reflection, and then putting those together to make improvements. So you have to watch this space. That's a new idea for us. But that came out of that idea came out of a previous presentation that we made. So we love to hear ideas.
Anyone want to share anything verbally on something that might be useful for your own context or how you might adapt them?
Another question that has come up to us in the past was whether the institution is behind using this as a way to rate course effectiveness. And the answer is no, the institution doesn't use this in that way. That this is put out, our goal was that this was anonymous and non-threatening and non-evaluative. And so an instructor goes in themselves and remains anonymous and is able to self-reflect. So that's not to say it couldn't be used, as a reference in that way, but it's not something that we have encouraged.
Anything else that anybody would like to share?
Or questions you have for us? I'd love to take questions.
Mm-hmm.
What feedback have we received from faculty using this? Good question. Karen?
So that's one of the issues, is it's anonymous, because we were very careful not to ask for instructors' names of any sort. So when we do, we're going to try to utilize it in a learning community approach that Dan was talking about, where they would take the survey and have their students take the survey and then compare. Then we'll be able to get more feedback. But right now, because it's anonymous, we don't get anybody's names. So the negative part is we don't get any feedback. Of course, we do put something on the website, but it isn't pushed at anyone. So right now, that's something that we're looking at. How can we do that yet still keep it anonymous?
Yeah, and informally, we've had people, look at it and give us just like, wow, this looks really useful, this looks great, that kind of feedback. But in terms of actually gathering, the comments from instructors, that's something we want to be strategic about how we do that so that we give people a chance to opt in and say, yes, can we follow up with you? So that's like, as we plan revisions of this, we're looking at how we can do that in a way that doesn't make people feel like they're being observed. So I guess part of the, passively, the feedback is also when we look at that, how people are engaging with it. Clearly, they're engaging with it. They're doing it thoughtfully. That if you look at the patterns of how people are reviewing, as particularly that 184 people who have engaged with it and clicked on more than one recommendation, you can see that there's interest in a lot of the topics. Most
we
of the
don't
people
have-
using it.
Yeah. Megan
But
asked
we
if
don't
there's a
follow
way
up with
to,
them directly.
right, if we could get instant feedback, I guess it could be anonymous. We haven't
Yeah.
done that because
Mhm.
we didn't want to have survey fatigue because we wanted to focus on the recommendations, but that is something that we might want to say, would you mind providing some fee? And the other negative of once they go through the survey, that doesn't mean that they've gone to the website yet. So if we put an instant feedback at the end of the survey, they haven't gone to the web because it directs them to the website. So it would be better to get feedback after they experience both the survey and the website. So that causes, an extra level of difficulty on getting that kind of instant feedback.
This isn't trying to avoid the idea that we should be getting feedback, but the kind of recommendations we're making are not instant solutions, right? People have to invest time in it and really think through and make changes in their course. So what's the right moment to get feedback is a big question, because we could get feedback of just their impression. I just walked through the survey, it seemed useful, but are we getting the best feedback then? Because those changes might take a month or 2 months or 6 months for somebody to really work through and to feel confident in. So how we want to be mindful of getting feedback in a way that gets the most valuable feedback. At the back of my mind with this as well is like, can we also gather data in a way that we can use it, not just for improving the tool, but like learning lessons from the tool and sharing those lessons. And there's some political issues within our Center for Teaching and Learning about the idea of going through IRB and actually doing research. And so I want to, work through that, I guess, so that we're gathering feedback in a way that is as useful as it can be to the most people. But thank you for asking, because it's important for us to keep that in our minds.
Yeah,
Other
it's a very
questions?
important question. Any others? Did you want to go back to the slides too while they're asking questions or not?
If anybody wants to see more slides, I'm happy to put them back up.
Just our final slides.
Sure.
Any other questions? Basically, it's just asking if you have questions and giving you the information. And the guide it does have a link to the slides, correct, Dan?
Yep, there's a link right at the top of the guide. One other question that we have had asked us before is the amount of information overwhelming? Which is a great question. The website itself does, as you go down into one of these recommendations, particularly if you start from the website, there's a lot there, right? This is an information heavy page. There's a lot of links, and there's not really any avoiding that if we're going to give people the commentary that they need to really understand what they're looking at. So somebody has to put time into reading this. Kind of the idea, one of the things we had in mind early on, this was during continuity of instruction, when we were doing a lot of fixing people's problems, various kinds, and writing a lot of complex emails to instructors about how do you do this, right? Could we give something that was in my mind as we framed this was, what would be the right amount of information if you were trying to solve that problem for someone, or you were trying to really get them to think about it deeply, and those few times during that time, many times. I put a lot of time into crafting a very long email to an instructor saying, here's what you're looking at, and here's what you can do, and here's some tools that will help you with that. And putting those things together, they got passed around and shared frequently and I would come back to an email I'd written earlier and say, hey, this is, I wrote this for an instructor over in sociology, but this will be helpful to you over here in engineering. Well, we kind of put those ideas together into this. And a lot of the ad hoc support that was developed at that time on the website that was kind of built to meet the needs of the moment. When we moved back to in person, a lot of the content was taken down, and we got permission to go through that and to grab the pieces that were of lasting value that weren't all pandemic related, and to use those as well and synthesize those into these pages. So it's a lot of information, but the goal was giving good information to someone who's thinking about this in depth. And if you start from the survey, it's presented piece by piece. You start by thinking, do I want to rate this? Then you rate yourself on this. And then you get and in doing that rating, you're looking at those questions. What is it? Why is it important? And where is it? To help guide that thought. So it's a learning experience. And by the time they get to how to put into practice, if they go through the survey, they're hopefully ready for that information. In fact, they're hungry for that information because they've been thinking about it. That's kind of the disadvantage of if you go straight to the website, is that the website's full of stuff. So that's why for at least an instructor, we encourage them to go through the survey. And obviously for a support professional, being able to say, okay, here's some useful stuff about, say, group work, and pulling that straight out and sharing it is easier. But that's kind of the idea behind that, and that's how we feel comfortable giving this much information.
Right, and one other
question today, but I think
and one other
interesting
point
stuff
that may not be obvious is before we were a Center for Teaching, Learning, and Mentoring, we have pockets all over the university that share this type of information from all our different colleges and schools. So we were able to look at all of that information and combine the best into one place, so an instructor wouldn't have to go dig around and search for all this stuff all over the place. So this was built when we were very decentralized, and we're able to combine a lot of things so they don't have to search all over the place.
Yeah, and with that, a lot of the information is UW specific, but not maybe a third, and a lot of the information is not. It's generally relevant to people not just on our campus. And we were able to highlight some really great resources that other centers for teaching and learning and other universities had put out. And so that was, it was a great way to be able to consolidate, the best information available. And one of the decisions, one of the other decisions we made when we were putting it together was that anytime we shared a link, we wouldn't just put the link in, we would explain what the link is, so that before anyone even clicks on it, they're able to get a sense of like, what is this? How's it going to help me? Do I want to open this link? So although we have a lot of information, a lot of the information is kind of helping people make that choice. Do I need to open a bunch of links or not? And how will it benefit me if I did?
Right, and I think we're coming up on our 50 minutes,
Yeah.
Bob. Is that, we're on our 50-minute, or do we have any time for any last questions, or are we done now?
I think we're at time. Well, thanks, everybody. Really appreciate you taking time
Yes.
out of your day to join us today. If you
Right.
think of anything else, this document is there and it's for you to use, and we appreciate everything you put into it. So thanks so much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the
Yeah,
conference
no,
experience.
thank you.
And
I really
you.
like this course self-review. Really nice. It's comprehensive, but it's also, as I said earlier, it's positive for faculty. Anyway, there you go. Anyway, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you all for coming, and feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions or have some ideas that you might want to utilize in your own setting. Thank you.